Hey everybody, it's Jen with Memory Quilts by Jen. I hope everyone's doing good. Wanted to make my next video, so I've got all the interfacing ironed on to the back of all the shirts for this collage quilt. And now I am ready to cut them down to the size that I need to assemble the quilt. This shirt is going to be 16.5 by 8.5. I have to add the 1/2 inch for the seam allowance. It's a 1/4 inch seam allowance all around. So yeah. So basically what I do is, I don't know if you can see on my cutting mat, but I have numbers written. So this is the center, and then I have 4.5, 6.5, 8.5, 10.5, and so on, so on, so on, so on. The quilt that I'm doing, the graph paper that I use is in 4-inch increments. So my squares are going to be divided by 4. So it's either going to be 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. This one is going to be 16.5 by 8. So we're going to cut it 16.5 this way and 8.5 this way. So I'm going to cut this shirt down a little bit because I also have the numbers, well, I have not the numbers, but I have lines down here that match the numbers at the top. So I want to be able to see them. So I'm going to cut down the shirt a little bit at the bottom, since it's only going to be 8.5 wide. I mean, I'm sorry, 8.5 long. I can cut, I can cut this whole bottom piece off because 8.5 is right here. So that's how long the logo is going to be. So yeah, so I can cut some of this off. So what I'm going to do is just kind of put my finger there so I kind of know not to cut above that. And I'll just cut down here. Doesn't have to be perfect because it doesn't matter. All right. So that way I have more of my board, my cutting mat, open up a little bit here, so I can see the top lines and my bottom lines. And I usually just eyeball it. I mean, the center of the shirt is not, doesn't have to be exact. I mean, it does. I say that loosely. It does have to be exact, but I've been doing this long enough, I can pretty much eyeball where the center is. So now I take my long ruler and I find the 16.5. So my 16.5 is over here, and then I have another one over here. You have to excuse me. I'm not extremely camera savvy, so I'm learning as I go. So just be patient with me on making content. All right, so I set my ruler up on that 16.5 line, and also down here. And then I just take this like that. Okay, and then I'm gonna do the same thing over here. I'm gonna find the 16.5. Make sure it's lined up on the bottom and on the top. You always, when you're cutting, you always want to double check 5 times and cut once. So I have definitely made mistakes over the years, and I have learned how to fix my mistakes. Okay, so my t-shirt is 16.5 by 16.5 wide. So now I'm going to rotate it. And again, I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. So basically this logo, you know, I mean, that's like the middle of the logo. So I'm going to put that right around the center there. Now I can't really see my lines really well on the bottom, but just, it's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold this up. Just like that. Okay, so now I want it to be 8.5 by 8.5. So I'm going to cut here. Excuse my sniffles, I don't know. Allergies or something, I don't know what it is, but woo. Okay, so I've got it lined up at 8.5 at the top and 8.5 at the bottom. I'm just gonna slice that off and come over here to the 8.5. Y'all, I don't know if you can hear the banging in the video or not. They're doing construction around my house and the banging is like so loud. Okay, so we got 8.5 up here and we're lined up down here. All right, so there you go. There's the 16.5 by 8.5 inch block. And that's how I cut my shirts. I will say I learned this technique from Lisa Capon Quilts. And I just want to give her a shout out because I've learned a lot from her. And definitely with collage quilts, it's a science. So I've learned a lot from her. So now what I do is I take some paper and I just write 16 by 8. I know my last piece was number 10. This is number 11. And I just cut the piece of paper out. I usually use sticky notes, but I'm out of sticky notes. So you use what you have, right? So yeah, so now all my pieces will have a piece of paper with the dimension and the number. So when I go to draw out my design on my graph paper, I just plug in the pieces and put a number on them so I know where they go. So yeah, all right. Well, I've got a stack of t-shirts to do this with, so I will be back with another video when I am starting to draw up my design. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you have a good rest of your week.